Have you ever played a game that makes coffee taste better, or that makes rainy days seem like a holiday more than a reason that you can't go outside? The game that I want to talk about today is exactly that epitomized in a cardboard box. I want to talk about Patchwork from Uwe Rosenberg. This summer, we took a 2-day trip to a cabin in Oklahoma because there are times in your life when you need a break from the hectic and the complex. There's something comforting about a cabin getaway. Maybe it's the lack of a TV or bad cell service. In fact, my favorite thing about this cabin was that my cell phone got no signal at all when I wasn't connected to Wi-Fi. But there's something freeing about having the distractions of a busy schedule and a routine interrupted for a couple of days now and then. Cabin getaways feel like a taste of retirement years before you can ever get there. It's like getting to see an R-rated movie before you're old enough. It's exciting, and it feels like something you shouldn't be able to experience yet. And a weekend at a cabin also has a way of making you forget about your worries for a little while. Being removed from the distractions and the things that vie for your attention can help you reset and just enjoy some calm, even for a day or two. Certain activities can give you that cabin escape feeling even for a few minutes. The ritual of a morning cup of coffee for me is partly about getting a jolt of caffeine, and partly about taking a few moments here and there just to sip and think about nothing else but a calm, warm drink. Now, there are games that give me that feeling as well, and Patchwork is one of them, and for years I've been trying to figure out what it is about board games that's so special. To say that board games changed my life isn't something I'm saying to be silly. Board games literally changed my marriage and caused me to have better relationships. And Patchwork was one of the first really good games that I owned as well, and part of the reason that my wife and I got really into gaming. So part of my love for the game may be nostalgia, but I really just think it's because it's a really good game more than anything. And I think the perfect story to illustrate why I think Patchwork is so important to me is the time that me and my brother went to Origins in 2019. For a long time, I'd known that I wanted to have the big convention experience. I had a few things going on in my life that made me feel like I just wanted to drive for days and days and be in a state that I'd never seen and experience things that I'd never experienced. So I thought to myself, I'm going to go to Origins because it's not as big as Gen Con and it's completely new and I need something that's not my life right now. So I told my wife that I really wanted to just take off and be alone for a week or so, and I told her my plan, and she said, "No way you're driving halfway across the country by yourself, but if somebody can go with you, then sure, go ahead and have fun." So a couple of months later, my brother and I were driving across the country with no plans other than be in Columbus by Origins and make it home before my paid time off ran out. Needless to say, I'd set out with the expectation of the big board game destination blowing my mind and changing my life, but what ended up happening when I got to Origins was that I felt overwhelmed and lost, and I just wanted to go home. And what my brother and I ended up discovering is that the journey to get to Origins was much more enjoyable than the destination. Our stop at the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis changed our perspective, and the drive through the mountains of Tennessee and Kentucky exposed us to beauty that we don't normally experience. The simplicity of the mountains and the clean air were refreshing and renewing, and the stops along the way to the big board game destination were the treasure, not the getting there. And to me, Patchwork is the perfect example of a fantastic stop along your board game journey that'll be meaningful and stick with you. It's not the hottest big box release, it's not the highest grossing Kickstarter project, but it's simple, it's beautiful, and has a whimsical, different feel even years after its release. It's still, in 2021, one of the only games that I know of about making a quilt. And I feel like as tabletop gamers, we get drawn in by the newest big game on Kickstarter or the newest big release by a rockstar designer, the big board game destinations. But in between those destination games, my true enjoyment is the game that I've played with my wife 20 times because the eternal pledge of the newest Kickstarter hotness hasn't come in yet. And Patchwork is a perfect example of the journey and not the destination. There are games that truly define our gaming journey, and many times it's not the big box pledge that surges to the top of the BGG hotness, it's the small box game about something as simple as crafting a quilt. And what makes Patchwork special is its simplicity and its elegance. It was a simple offshoot even for the designer. Patchwork was a small sub-design for Uwe Rosenberg that came to him as he was designing his magnum opus, A Feast for Odin. And as I said in my Nussfjord review, many times I feel that Uwe starts trends in game design. Patchwork, I truly feel, was a trend-starting game. Uwe himself has released a slew of polyomino games since Patchwork came out, but so have many other designers. And I see so many games now that utilize this type of component. Even though Uwe has come out with so many other games using the polyomino piece, Patchwork is still his best in my opinion. A Feast for Odin is the all-you-can-eat buffet of his game mechanisms, but Patchwork is the purest extract of Tetris puzzle goodness that he can produce. It's simple, beautiful, elegant, and the perfect game to take to a coffee shop or a cabin or on a road trip for two. And the theme of Patchwork is brilliant. At its heart, Patchwork is a themeless, abstract puzzle game with a satisfying engine-building aspect. But the designer had to come up with a theme that would give some life to this satisfying assortment of mechanisms, and he came up with patching together a quilt. And it's so brilliant and it's so simple. And I'm getting the same Tetris-style puzzle brain burn, but the entire time I'm playing, I'm just staring at this gorgeous, cute game about collecting buttons and filling my board with beauty. It really is much cheaper than therapy, and it calms you down significantly. You should try it. Mechanically, Patchwork is brilliant as well. Uwe uses two resources, buttons and time, to create tension between the players. Your goal in Patchwork is simple. You need to fill up your board and have as many buttons as possible. The only problem is you have a very limited amount of turns to complete this task, and when your player piece gets to the center of the spiral on the main game board, you're done taking actions. You can also only select from 3 tiles each turn, and your opponent has some control of which tiles will be available to you when your turn comes around. And even when you do get to your turn, the choices aren't easy because each tile you pick needs to fit most efficiently on your player board, and you have to try and get the largest tile possible and also get some buttons to power your engine. And each tile also has a time cost that you have to move forward a number of spaces based on which tile you pick. It's a tough trade-off to make because typically the more buttons a tile has, the farther it will move you. And it's great that you have buttons, but you also have to fill your board, and to do that you need more time. See the struggle? This game is all about balance and reacting to your opponent, and it's so much fun. All the while, it doesn't feel that stressful though, because at the end of the day, all you're really trying to do is build a quilt, and how calming is that? Patchwork was one of the games that sticks out to me on my board gaming journey. It was one of the games that shaped my gaming tastes, and one that I'm always willing to play. It's simple, affordable, and fun, and it's one of those games that also provides so much replayability and doesn't overstay its welcome. If you get a chance, try Patchwork, because you never know. It may start you on a journey of your own.